Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Doubles Take podcast. Before we get started with today's interview, I just want to say a really quick thank you. I greatly appreciate people are listening to the podcast, and reposting my posts and sharing it with your friends. It means a lot to me, and from the bottom of my heart, thank you. I'm just so happy I get to do this, but also that people are listening and that the stunt performers are getting to share their stories, but also that people are listening to them. So thank you so much. I have a really great episode for you ahead. I interviewed Felix Audu. He's a great stunt performer. He's worked on really big movies such as the new Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. He was Kevin Hart's stunt double, which was awesome, on Kevin Hart's latest film, Lift. It's a new comedy heist movie on Netflix. And we also talked about his experience working in John Wick 4 and that awesome, crazy nightclub scene with the massive waterfalls coming down. All that and more. It's a really fun one. So, without further ado, let's get right into it.
So while doing these interviews, I found that each stunt performer has a wildly unique skill set and often works in different areas than the last. Can
Yeah.
you please elaborate on like your typical on-set roles and give listeners an overview of your skill set?
Yeah, mostly I'm a fight performer. So I design fights, I mostly perform fights. I also do like a little bit of car driving, high faults, sometimes burns, but I would say my specialty are fights and also particularly pre-production. So designing the fights, testing them out, seeing what works for the actors, seeing whether actors are actually able to perform certain stunts or whether we need a double or not, things like that. Assisting the stunt coordinator with coaching the people, or like when we created the movements, rehearsing them, stuff like that. I would say that yeah, my skill set is mostly concentrated on that. Though I still do, all the other stuff that comes with doing stunts. Sometimes there's just a role and you have to like wing it. You're like, yeah, I mean, I think I can do it, like
Mm-hmm.
type of thing. So yeah, but I'm mostly based in fights,
And
fights,
that's
fights.
that's really cool. And how much planning goes into like a typical fight scene, you would say? Like there's probably like a lot of training and practice and improvising, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, on shoot day, there's usually no improvising. It's really a lot of all things are really planned out very well. It's a couple of weeks, a couple of days preparation. But for example, on the last Hunger Games, we did there was like this big battle scene. We rehearsed this battle scene like for 6 weeks almost. Like we created it, rehearsed it, and did everything, all that stuff. And it was like 2 3 minutes in the movie. So
Wow.
sometimes it really they overkill it if the budget is there. But yeah, it's really, it also depends on the type of movie, like the size. It's like 100 million budget. It's going to be a different type of preparation
Hmm.
going into pre-production than when it's like 10 million, 1 million, all low budgets. So yeah, and then if it's like a whole action movie, sometimes you don't really, there's really like, you wing it on the move. Like you design it on the night before or through the night, and then like it's expected of you, if you're an advanced performer or like in a core team, that you deliver it on the spot, sort of
Yeah.
like you rehearse it, you see it a couple of times, then you do it, you shoot it. It's like a 10-minute process. But most of the big Hollywood things, most of the time they have really big budgets, and then they take their time. They take the time designing everything, making everything safe too. You know, it's like
Do you have a preference? Like, how you said you planned for 6 weeks for the Hunger Games. Do you like that better, or do you like kind of winging it the night before? Do you have a preference?
um well, that's a difficult question because like both, there are ups and downs on both ends. I would say for me personally, I like the heat. So when it's more complex and there's like advanced performance on set and we all need to wing it, there's much more of, there's more pressure and like everything's more, and that's more my type of game. I would say like I like to get like a lot of tests and a lot of additions and then like figuring it out on the spot, and that's like sort of what I like. But obviously it's comfortable to have the time, and when the budget allows it and everything is well coordinated, it's just nice to take your time with everything, to rehearse everything until you feel like, oh yeah, now it looks the way we want to have it, and like stuff like that. It's really depends on what mood you're in, you know.
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
and obviously it's also work, so obviously you
Right.
don't want to be on the edge all the time. So
Right.
so if you
Right.
have certain periods where it's nice, and then you enjoy it, but like after 2 or 3 weeks and you don't get the rest, and it's always that pressure, that sucks. But
Hmm.
if there's if you're in an uncomfortable situation, it gets boring after somewhere. 20, 30 people in a room. It's like the same action that you have rehearsed that for like 4 weeks. You know your parts. Like there's certain errors in it. They don't have anything to do with you. You gotta just repeat it with all the people. So then it's like, okay, you gotta get through it. But yeah, yeah. That is rarely the case. Most of the movies don't have that budget, and it's not like movies prioritize stunt budget for other drama things. Like you called second unit for a reason in the hierarchy. So
Yeah.
it's like yeah, if we got the time and the money, they get it. But I mean, producers, they are not known for having money and time. Like they
Right.
don't offer that money. They're like, you gotta have that director or the stunt coordinator who has the power or the prestige, who basically doesn't work, who only works that way, like who sort of demands the time and the money. And for a lot of cases, in a lot of cases, that's not the case. Like the stunt coordinators are more like, in a lot of cases, that's not the case. Like the stunt coordinators are more like, and they have pressure from the director, pressure from producers, and then some please those parties more than others, and some fight for more for our side. So as always, every stunt coordinator and director is different in that regard.
Right. That makes sense. That makes sense. Now what got you into the stunt work and in general, like the film industry? Like what was it that kind of attracted you about it?
Well, I studied business administration before, which is sort of unrelated. But before I started studying, I was always like a physical type of guy. I always did martial arts from very young on, like since I think 1996 or something. So like when I was 4, I started, and I never stopped. And over here in Germany, I grew up in Germany, and got raised in Germany, and over here,
Hmm.
sports like soccer or tennis, like they are much more popular. You can if you're talented,
Hmm.
you can make a career out of it. And right after basically studying, or between studying, like after graduating high school and then studying, I did some theater stuff and dance stuff. So I did like tricking and all karate stuff from my breaking past. I did
Hmm.
that throughout my high school next to my martial arts. And then I went to an audition. A friend of mine had that. He had already like one credit. He was already like, he knew some people, and they're like, oh, we got this audition for that movie. It was Gunpowder Milkshake. That was the name. They were like, oh, okay.
Hmm.
I was like, oh, really? I'm not. It's on invite, and I just went with them. And then they had a double role because one of the actors looked like me. So I was like, oh, that works. And we did some martial arts in the audition, and that was sort of like the core team. They were like, oh, why are you sort of like, I didn't see you, like your martial arts is exquisite, like it's nice, like how come, because the community in Germany is very small, like people know each other. And I was gone because I was studying, I did my other stuff, and I just appeared out of nothing. And they, for the first time, I felt that feeling when someone appreciates your art. So because I was great raised in it, sort of in martial arts, and they were like, they knew the names, they knew my sensei, they knew like
Hmm.
sort of figureheads, and they were like, oh, this is the guy. Oh, that's your style. Oh, you do kung fu, Wun Kendo, kung fu. Oh, yeah, I know that guy. X, Y, blah, blah. I was like, oh, and they see the movement quality,
Yeah.
and I got like, they were like, oh, you know that, and that, like, yeah, I was like, oh, that's the
Wow.
first time I really got appreciated for the stuff I was raised in, sort of, because everyone's played soccer, everyone played tennis, and I was like, I wish I would have been raised in that, because then I could have, done some stuff in there, made some good money, and blah blah. And yeah, from there on, they took me uh, for a double, and in that year, I met a lot of people, and through my martial arts skills, sort of like they took me under their wing, sort of.
Hmm.
There were different deal, real deal. And then there was certain coordinators here in Berlin. They just booked me for certain small things, and I was like, oh, I guess I was raised to do this type of thing, like because obviously I always watch the movies and stuff, and And after uni, I had this. I was deciding whether to go into 9 to 5 work because I was also interested in what I was doing, or continuing doing the arts thing. And then I decided to go to Berlin, and through that, I met my friend who brought me to this audition. And from there, it sort of snowballed into the thing because on all the projects, on every new project, you meet new people, and they are sort of, if they need you, you go here and there, and then you
Hmm.
train, you get to know people through workshops and stuff, and then like it sort of snowballs. But yeah, so it was really like I looked for it, but at the same time I didn't know how to get into it, and I sort of snuck in like
Right.
sideways, and then remained really like like because also quite some people were here who it took them 5 to 6 years to like
Yeah.
get to into the room where you can actually show stuff. So that was really, without that sort of sideways, like you cannot do any like practices. There's no real training for that in Berlin. You can't audition to do stuff. It's not like in States. There's much more open auditions. Over here, you don't have that. Like you really like people work or they don't work, and there's no real road towards it, and also no place where you
Right.
can show yourself. Like, oh, I can do martial arts. I might be able to do some stunts or certain things. So that's like it's a real niche thing here in Europe, I would say.
I was gonna say that's super interesting because I've interviewed a lot of stunt people from America, so I like to hear the other perspective and how it's different because I imagine it is a lot different, and so it's really cool to hear about that.
Yeah. No, here in Europe, it's really because the industry is just not so big. We, particularly in Germany, we don't have an action genre, like dedicated action genre, like the Rock movies and those like Fast and the Furious type of things. We don't have that. Like it's just not German type, I guess. Like so, there is no proper demand on that. You have to have the certain police guy hunting some bad guys down or some certain like small things, but you don't have like John Wick or like sort of action movies. You don't have the
Right.
Terminator type of things. You don't have that. So so for us, it's really different. There's like a couple of
Right.
hundred, maybe a couple of thousand
Hmm.
full-time stunt performers only. And most of them work internationally if they're able to, because otherwise there's just not enough
Yeah.
demand in Germany. Like the ones who are good, they just travel, and the other
Hmm.
ones, do it a couple of times in their spare time and then have another job. Like it's like with all the arts, usually, it's not everyone is. I mean, there's just not
Wow.
enough jobs for everyone, unfortunately. And over here, there's not even a developed market for it, really. Like it's a very tight, small community.
Right. Right. That makes sense. So do you fly out to America and other places for work sometimes, or do you mainly stay kind of
Yeah,
in Europe?
yeah. I'm mostly in Europe. I was once or twice. I was in the States, twice actually. But for work, I'm mostly based in Europe and Berlin, like Germany. I do maybe like 30% of the work and 70% abroad, like UK, and then Eastern European cities. I was in Italy last year, and in Northern Ireland, Belfast. So like yeah, in Turkey I was a couple like 2 years ago. We went Turkey, in Istanbul. So that was also crazy. And like yeah, Eastern European. Like sometimes I was in Kiev once,
Hmm.
and yeah, some productions to go to the Eastern European front who steal our jobs nowadays. so 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 yeah, I've been there a couple of times. That was great. Yeah, so I'm mostly Europe based.
That's cool. That's cool. And I wanted to ask you about your work on The Matrix 4. It's one of my favorite franchises, and I have to ask, like, how's your experience on that?
So yeah, Matrix was interesting too. I mean, it was just like we had so many like the scene where Keanu is under the thing and he blows up and everyone flies away. And it was such a crazy scene, like because everyone was wired up and then it just explodes and everyone just flies away, get rigged, like ratcheted away, and like some people missed their mark, flew like into this, into that. It was like a crazy type of scene I was part of. That was nice, and other than that, I mean, Lana just knows what she like. She's also just such a martial arts nerd, so she knows. She knows her thing, and it was also interesting because she's hands-on, like, and producers, she wants to show, she wants to express how she sees the scene, and then she climbs onto the, onto the car, like a G-Wagon, like climbs on top of it, like shows stuff, and like you see some people on the side, producers who are like in case she falls, like they go like they're anxious and stuff, and we're like, oh, she knows her stuff, so that was also so amazing to see, and overall a great experience, also a great team. Yeah, I did sort of Uncharted and Matrix back to back, so that was like also an experience for me personally, like having like both of those projects back to back and seeing like the way they operate differently, so
Right,
that was
right,
interesting.
and both really big movies,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So yeah,
So that was cool. Matrix.
Eh, yeah. And I saw from your Instagram you were a Kevin Hart stunt double, which must have been awesome on Lyft. And I watched that movie; it was super fun. How was that experience in doubling for Kevin Hart? Like that must have been really cool.
Yeah, yeah, that was cool. Shout out to the whole team, and the whole day was in Belfast, and I was booked for the pre-production, so designing all the stuff. I'm mostly the airplane fight. So I played his role through pre-production. So then he came in a couple of times, training, doing some stuff. Really professional guy, really like matter of fact, and like also obviously funny, but also very much matter of fact business. I really enjoyed that. Then we had two units, one in Belfast where Kevin was shooting the main stuff with his main double, which is Jay. Shout out to him. He did a couple of movies with him already. I think he's like permanently with him. And then I did the Venice unit, which was like just 2 weeks of shooting the speedboat stuff. So they did it back to back. So he needed two doubles, and over there I was in his double for 1 week in Venice. So yeah, the whole thing was great, like crazy good. Like the pre-production was fun. The way Steve Griffin was stunt coordinator, very amazing guy, very fun to work with. And shout out also to Lee who brought me over. He was a fight coordinator. It was just like every day designing the fights, checking like identifying with the character, thinking about like what would he do, or some director notes. He cannot kill. There's not too much blood and stuff, not too violent because he's like a trickster more than like a real he's just not so brute, and so then coming up with like correlating movements and stuff, the way he can
Hmm.
evade
Yeah.
things, or like get rid of enemies and get his ways. It was very interesting, very nice job. And yeah, 3 weeks pre-production going over, and then 2 weeks later the Venice stuff, which was also interesting. Very, very interesting. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so Venice, I
Hmm.
mean, they weren't allowed to close it down because Venice is so tight, So they weren't allowed to sort of barricade the area where we were like
Mm.
prepped and stuff. So people like just ran through the set and ran through things constantly because tourists, yeah, because the city didn't allow to lock it up because obviously at some point, everyone wants to film there. At some point, they're like, guys, like the two shops, there's only one path to that shop. So then these guys cannot work for those days and blah, blah, blah. It's just too narrow. So they didn't allow to just cross it off. Mhm. And so
Hmm.
then that was interesting. The overall thing is just, you're in Venice, you're working there. I was like, yeah, like good weather in the summer, and
Right.
I mean, on the boat, it was still work because your call is at 6 a.m. You go out and you're whole day on the boat doing your stuff.
Hmm.
It's the sun is heavy. You're in like full suit and
Right.
stuff. Like you do your stuff. Like you're working. So, but still, it's like it was like I always
Hmm.
it's every project really is a privilege to
Yeah.
have and to like work on. Like it's all I rarely had a project where I was like, yeah, where I was like, oh, what the fuck was that? And blah blah blah. I mean, certain aspects are always
Yeah.
like, oh, you could do this better, or but you compare things. But generally speaking, every project is unique and very exceptional. And mostly, like most of the
Right.
people in the scene are also like filtered out already. Like it's very hard to get to a certain stage, and most of the people are at those stages are very capable. In my
Hmm.
experience, which is, I mean,
Yeah.
maybe like 20 movies, or
Wow.
17 movies, 18 movies. So
Hmm.
I
And
cannot speak for all, but for me, my experience was very
the
pleasant so
airplane
far
scene was
already.
so cool. I watched that recently and that was a really good fight scene. Now and so that was you in there. Were you the one that like fell down the stairs? Because I remember like he like goes down like
This is Yeah. I have a back to back from the
Uh-huh.
previews, which we designed, and then the actual thing. And that was Jay
Hmm.
in the plane. I was the guy on the motorboat when when they're racing and
Yeah,
they
yeah, yeah.
like the barricade goes up. So the more he's on one of
Oh,
the motorboats, that's me.
oh, cool.
So and then and yeah, the whole action then with the I think he took the phone, right, and then he like hit him with the phone and then wrapped it around him and threw him down the
Mhm.
stairs. That scene, like that's the way, that's the stuff we designed, sort of. Okay, the way
Cool.
he crashes into it and we rebuilt the thing. We had like with cartons, right? We rebuilt the plane and like
Wow.
the exact things, and then I have like a back-to-back video which I might drop at some point, but I'm a little bit scared of Netflix right now. So, that they like that they flag it or some shit, like because it's actually right now on Netflix,
Right, 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 right.
but like the scene underneath with me, and then you see me how I crash, exactly how he in the movie crashes into it, gets
Whoa.
the hits, and then like he gets thrown on the thing. We rebuild the stairs, so I throw down the stairs, and then in the movie he falls down the stairs,
Yeah,
and
that's so cool. I love to
yeah,
see
and that's
that.
the
That's
action.
so cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I'll definitely share that somehow.
Okay, okay.
I'm not so good in the Instagram game, but
And so now I wanted
I'll
to
share.
ask you about John Wick 4, of course, one of the best action franchises, and it's kind of known for their impressive stunt work. How was it on that, and what stunts were you involved in?
John Wick 4 was actually a quite short experience for me. I did like I think 3 weeks on it.
Hmm.
So I wasn't in the core team or something. I was only here for the club scenes. There's the club with the water coming down,
Yeah, that's really impressive. Yeah, crazy.
where we was fighting, and then the scene on the rooftop with the masks. I think the opening scene was like one of the opening scenes.
Hmm.
But yeah, the club scene was really nice, I have to say, like interesting experience because the thing is with that franchise, when they were here, they came with the Japanese team, French team, and American stunt team. So for the people from Germany, and then we had the German stunt team too. So a lot of people. Then they had, I think, like for those particular scenes, they had like I don't know, 60 dancers, then
Wow.
50 extras to like make the crowd, the
Right.
club crowd
Yeah.
and stuff, and then piano was that was the scene with the dog also where the dog hit the guy, and like it was just like Keanu got bitten once, which also
Oh.
he's such a professional, like he didn't even, yeah, I mean the dog is trained, right, and then you have the mark here,
Hmm.
but I think he missed the mark a little bit. So
Oh.
then he bit him. He was like, but he got sued up right away, like not sued up, but like
Right.
bandaged quick, sat down and like continued like nothing. Like he's also such a work machine, like
Hmm.
crazy to see and very inspirational. Like he, whenever we were not shooting, he was training, and very like sometimes doing photos with some people like who wanted to take some pics and stuff. Very very down to earth, and he's exactly like how his branding, how people portray him to
Yeah.
be, sort of the nicest guy in Hollywood, sort
Uh-huh.
of.
Yeah.
Like so that's very very nice guy. And then again, there was 8711 with Chad,
Right.
the way he runs the set and the way he interacts with the dancers and the extras, and how he like directs the stuff. It was really really inspiring to see.
Hmm.
So I was very very glad to be, although it was just like a small part.
Yeah.
I was very glad to be like part of it. It was
Right.
really
And
fun.
that club
Yeah,
scene is awesome. I remember I watched like an extra on it, and that place was huge with all the water. There was like hundreds of gallons of water, right? Like
yeah.
that's crazy. Must have been really cool like being
Yeah,
in
and
that big
also
space.
Keanu's double. I think he dropped down the thing right in the club to the
Yeah,
next
yeah,
thing, and that was crazy stunt too. How like because then the water comes, like you drop, and then you drop into the waterfall, and while you're falling, there's like water splashing into your like everything, like you
yeah.
halfway get waterboarded on that shit, and like and he did such a great job.
Yeah. Is there any kind of franchise or movie you'd like to like choreograph for fighting, or like that like a stunt you would like to work on?
I mean, I'm right now. I'm really looking forward to doing some more sort of independent
Hmm.
things, like so sort of to like be also more free to experiment with certain type of
Right.
stunts. There is a stunt in Rio Kuyushin or something. It's like a Japanese real life, and also obviously I would enjoy doing some stuff in the
Hmm.
States, just like for the experience. In
Hmm.
comparison to Europe, there's a little bit like they're even more professional, and they take more risk in terms of doing the movies.
Right.
So I would like to see how they work and how that works. But it would be like a year or something thing for me personally.
Yeah.
Like it's just like for the experience, I'm really comfortable here in Europe and also love the way for this. I saw also when 8711 here, there was a much straighter, more serious approach towards testing people and the way
Hmm.
the way like whether you do it or not. It's a more cutthroat environment, I would say.
Hmm.
Europe is a little bit more forgiving, a little bit more constructive in certain
Yeah.
regards, I would say. So yeah, but I would love to do maybe like a Marvel thing
Hmm.
because I've never done that, like a superhero type of
Yeah.
thing, because the most of the stuff was drama and real life
Right.
action,
Right.
like
Yeah. That I don't have interviewed anyone yet that's worked on like a superhero movie. I have like some scheduled, but
hmm.
I'm also curious to hear about how that is working with CGI and like how that impacts doing it, you know?
Yeah. Of course. I mean, I can imagine it also as a downside as that it's like a green screen and it's more like you perform into nothingness
Right.
since it gets edited. Or like if you have a super big sword, it's gonna be in real life, it's gonna be a green stick, which you can CGI nicely. But the range of the weapon might be, I don't know, a berserker sword, like like a 10-meter sword, something like that. So then the other performer gotta take his hit 10 meters from you, and you gotta perform into the air, sort of. So that's, I guess, also like a downside that you don't have this realistic type of fighting. Although it's theatrical fight, it's still, you feel it like when you do the hero versus a goon. You hear and the people react. You feel like really like it hit.
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
like there's a naturalness to the unnaturalness, I would say.
Hmm.
So, how about you though? Did you work on any set yet, or do you want to become a performer, or is it just like curiosity, or is it like a research
Yeah,
thing,
this is
or like
for me. I'm still in college, so I worked on college sets, but I want to do sound actually, like sound work and sound editing and mixing.
oh
Yeah, and
okay
so this is something, yeah, I'm just curious about. And I've always, since I was a kid, I've always kind of loved action movies, and I've always been interested. I know when I'm always watching the extras of movies, I always love hearing about the stunt work, because I also feel like that's something that's underappreciated and something that so much planning goes into that I would love to hear about. So that's why I'm doing this, just out of like curiosity. But I would, after I'm
yeah
done college, I want to work on kind of the
amazing
sound post-production side and do sound editing and mixing.
amazing. Also very big part of the whole action thing. Like when you insert the sounds just roughly, like the hits and stuff, everything looks and feels amazing
Hmm.
all of a sudden. Like
Yeah.
that's a huge part.
Hmm.
Like having great sound collection, bones breaking, hits and stuff,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Just a few more questions. Are there any favorite stories or fights that you've worked on that you like to talk about?
I had like I think Apple Plus production for this German production. It's called Helgoland.
Hmm.
It's like the last city that wasn't is not infected with the virus, so everyone goes to this island, not city, island, and certain drama ensues. Like people are over there also like cannibalistic, because it's like the last place on earth where people do stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was in November, so it was like I had this water stunt there. Well, it wasn't supposed to be a water stunt, but it turned out to be a water stunt. So I jumped onto a like moving boat.
Whoa.
Sort of, it was like I don't know, like 20 kilometers per hour driving, and then it's like a 1.5 meters dock sort of. And I had like 1 x 1 meters like sort of space to land on,
Mm.
but on the rear of the boat, there was just
Whoa.
like a loading area.
Yeah.
And that was interesting because that was really like I did love fighting before stuff. Also cool stunts, cool hits and stuff, but like that was really like an archetypical stunt. You need to like sort of you cannot really rehearse it because the boat's gotta always be a little bit different, sort of, from the distance. So you cannot like just jump and like practice until you get it. And there's water underneath. So if you miss it, it's fucked up because then you cannot like you're in the water. So I had to land and then like be at the rail and then come up.
Yeah.
So but I had to duck down. So land and duck down. So then they can cut into the actor who comes up, but delivers one line, and then he gets a headshot. Then they cut again to me where I fall into the water, and then I'm like a corpse.
Oh.
So then I drift towards the coast, and then they pull me out. So the whole thing Was like a lot of stunts.
Yeah, that sounds
And
complicated.
yeah. It was like sort of a precision jump onto like a rear end of a moving boat,
Hmm.
which is always a little bit different every take. And then you had to take it, different type of angles, so 3, 4 times. We had to do it.
Yeah.
I was really demanding because you cannot really practice it. You have to gotta do it. If you miss it, that's fucked up. But also, it's a high difficulty jump because it's moving and it's just such a small place. And my coordinator already was like, "Yeah, if you miss it, we can CGI it, and no problem." I was like, "Bro, like, okay, I'm not gonna miss it." Like,
Yeah.
so that was an interesting thing because usually I'm comfortable, like then I like to fight if I get a hit or something, designing stuff.
Hmm.
There's pressure on because there's loads of changes, but the task at hand usually doesn't stress me. The boat's turning around, coming by, I'm standing here, and I see the boat coming, and it takes like 30, 40 seconds. So the time doesn't go by, and you're overthinking your life. It's like, okay, I gotta jump in a second. Like, you're looking to the horizon, there's like water, it's like November, 5 degrees Celsius, like,
Yeah,
and you're
that's
like
cool.
in those rags, like in the costume, like the shit is coming. Like, is this really what I'm doing? Like, and then worked out, everything worked out, so that was cool.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me today. Lastly, is there anything you'd like to promote or tell our listeners about?
Give us an Oscar though.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's not cool. I mean, in the States at least, you're in a Screen Acting Guild.
Right.
Like, as a stunt performer, you're valued as an actor, sort of, because you're in front of the screen performing. But in Europe, even, like, a lot of stunt performers are more like on the crew side.
Hmm.
Audio is, whereas VFX
Right.
is. It's not even, you're very far off the from an actor.
Right. Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
so and like, having an Oscar, generally speaking, for the whole industry worldwide, would also elevate the stunt profession in itself.
Hmm.
It would distinguish it more from being part of the crew, because actually now, for the performance, which is in front of the camera, like an actor,
Yeah.
you gotta probably get the value out of it. Because if it's an action movie, we will do all the work.
Right.
And also, the hero role is actually the much more easier role. Like, as soon as you have to choreo down, the performers around gotta have the timing proper. And if you're the third guy, and you running from across the room over, the timing gotta be on point. If you arrive at him, but the second guy is still fighting, you arrive. Now you cannot shoot it, because now it looks weird when you're waiting behind him. So all the 10 people gotta come at the right time, do the right reaction, always on point, adjust to all the mistakes. So that type of stuff, it really makes the movie more than the main guy in the middle, whether he's an action performer or an actor. So it'd be interesting if stunts just generally get a little bit more appreciation for
Recognition.
making it look
Yeah.
nice.
Do stunt performers have a lot of conversations about like getting an Oscar? Is that something that's like kind of talked about a lot within the industry?
No, I wouldn't say so. I wouldn't say so. I mean, also, the profession in itself is not like most of the actors, they want to become famous. Like, their goal is to be in a big movie and to be that actor who is, you get that recognition from everyone. But for some people, a lot of people don't want to be in the limelight. It's actually very comfortable for us to do the work and stuff, and be in that type of sphere, but be not the main guy who has to do the press stuff, type of stuff, who does X and Y. So most of the performers I know are not really those type of. They're happy to be in that type of job, and they're very, like, genuine people with that. We get paid well. We're doing interesting stuff we love. Even though when you look at the biggest stunt performers, most of them, they don't post much on Instagram. They don't. Most of, like, there's some martial arts Instagrammer who did some stunts, but those who are like in the core teams around the world doing the work, most of them are really humble people. They don't flex with it. They have their families on Instagram. That's it. They have maybe, but everyone knows they did like 50 credits, like, in the last 2 years, biggest movies. But but yeah, if there's a crazy stunt, it would be nice, like, because people share that on Instagram. That's what, people are interested in it. So why not
Right,
reward it?
right. That makes
Because,
sense.
like, regular people see that it's something special. They appreciate it as something special. So how come that the industry itself doesn't say, oh, there's differences in
Right.
quality, and that's something that is really exceptional, and that's maybe a basic stunt, or something that every stunt performer is expected to be
Hmm.
doing. Like, that would be nice.
Yeah, yeah, good point. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Like, people like to see it. Like,
They
people,
do.
it's just like
Hmm.
they appreciate it. And you do a podcast because you see people doing some certain stuff. You understood that those are not the actors, those are not crew, those are certain other guys. Maybe, obviously there's some interesting stuff they're doing. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's just like, yeah, amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for talking today. I really, really appreciate you taking time out of your day to speak with me. And
Sure, no.
yeah, I'll send this to you before it goes out. But thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
And that was my interview with Felix Audu. It was such a good time interviewing him, and I loved hearing what he had to say and his takes on the industry and just his experiences and how he got started. I found it so interesting. And if you want to keep listening to the podcast, there's a new episode out every single Friday, streaming everywhere, wherever you get your podcast. And in the description, I'm going to put a link to my TikTok. I'm going to start making little TikToks on there and like doing filters and posting clips from the pod, maybe in advance, little sneak peeks. So look out for that. Also, a link to my Instagram where I'll post and you'll get all the latest updates on the Doubles Take. So that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next Friday.